Hi, everyone. Good evening. Carl Steinbeck here on a Sunday night, January 25th, and 2026. We're still waiting for more Adelson arrests and prosecutions by the Jack Campbell office. The state attorney there in Tallahassee has not delivered more follow up to the two convictions we have so far on Charlie Adelson and his sister Wendy Adelson for the murder of Professor Dan Markel. So justice has not been completed. That's a step in the right direction, but unless Jack Campbell pursues more uh, efforts to go after those responsible for the murder of Professor Markel, we do not have justice. We have partial justice, but we need full justice, or you don't have proper resolution on this case. We don't have resolution for the Markel family because think of what they're going through. They've been enduring trial after trial, year after year. This thing's dragged out for so many years, and they just don't have a lot of energy out of the Tallahassee prosecution office there. And so it's been very frustrating to see. It's the reason I was able to be talked in and arm twisted by my brother into joining up and doing having a channel to talk about this injustice there in Tallahassee. So and it's come to the point now where I'm really just flabbergasted. It's beyond ridiculous. I've seen some comments like that as well here in the chats, both tonight and on the channel since I last got on talking about this case. And it's pretty much just a ongoing thing where people saying, "What's going on with the prosecution officer? Why are they sitting on their hands? Why can't they do something?" And so they had all that momentum after Donna's conviction, which was easily predictable, is something that I predicted that she's going down all three counts. But there in Tallahassee, they didn't have a lot of confidence in that case, in Charlie's case. If Charlie would have gotten a hung jury, they would have stopped prosecuting any other Adelson. But what they had was a slam dunk win against Charlie, a slam dunk win against Donna. And now we're just like, why have you stopped not pursuing that momentum, that wave of momentum you have to bring down the other Adelsons responsible for this murder plot? So it's really just so angry to sit there and think about how that they just don't seem to have much concern, and there's not a lot of zeal and zest to go after other folks. If you look at the press conference after Donna was convicted, and people want to know what's going to happen next, it's like it's not really something that the that we saw much vigor and inspiring talk coming out of the prosecution's office. In fact, Jack Campbell's talking about how the prosecution needs a arrest there. So it's really something that you don't hear from prosecution offices saying they need arrest after a trial. This is not some really hard fought trial that took so much uh, new techniques and tactics to try to get evidence in and try to argue stuff that was really tough to convince a jury on. No, it's pretty much like shooting fish in a barrel with both Charlie and Donna. They had the most ridiculous story and defense you can imagine. Donna looked guilty the whole time she's sitting there while other people were testifying. She also had her son looking the same way, just like they didn't have to answer to anybody. They weren't going to be held accountable, and they could walk out of that courtroom and have nothing happen to them. So it's um it's one of these deals where the evidence is not lacking, the prosecution is lacking. So what exactly they're lacking, we don't know for sure. We don't have an insight into what's going on in that office, but I can tell you that my time covering this case is really odd in the sense that I've not had people say stuff to me that are from Tallahassee that are actually even friends of Dan that actually seemed that they were concerned about this slow pace of prosecution. So, and in fact, it's the opposite. It's like, hey, don't be too tough on Jack Campbell. He's sensitive. He's sensitive to criticism or stuff like that. It's like, well, you know what? If you're not doing your job properly, then you need to step down, move aside, let somebody else do it. So he ran against nobody this last reelection, and there was nobody that challenged him on the Democratic side. He's a um, Democratic state attorney, and the governor there is Republican, and but he's sitting right there in the same town. He's a Democrat, so he's had more than enough time to have all the help and resources from the FBI. In fact, if you think about the FBI's involvement in this, if it wasn't for Special Agent Sanford deciding to do the bump, that famous bump, against Donna. It's like this case would still be sitting there in neutral and no Adelsons prosecuted whatsoever. So I think that we have the FBI to thank for this. In fact, if you go back and listen to what Special Agent Sanford said, I'm pretty sure it was on cross examination, bringing out on, which was bizarre. I thought they're trying to bring out how they didn't really have a plan to arrest Donna while he's driving down to Tallahassee. So anyway, I would say that. Sorry, my phone's ringing here. Thought I was on mute, but I would say that if he's like driving to Miami and he does not have any green light that they're actually going to have an arrest warrant ready for him down there, think about it. He was driving that lengthy 7.5 hour drive, not knowing if it was going to be an effort in total vain, because he didn't know if Jack Campbell's going to pull the trigger and actually write up um, an actual arrest for Donna's to be apprehended there as she's boarding the plane. So that's what it took. Is basically, if it went for Jack Campbell, being prodded by the FBI agent driving down to Miami to try to intercept Donna fleeing the country, then they would never had Donna prosecuted as well. So there's just a lot of missteps and things that they just fumbled the ball on repeatedly. That's just very frustrating to see. So yeah, I don't have a lot of faith and confidence that Jack Campbell has the faith and confidence he needs to try this next case. And like I said, with Wendy, you need somebody that has experience prosecuting complex cases, that it has no fears of putting forth circumstantial evidence, which in many cases is way stronger than direct evidence. So we do have a lot of direct evidence, and so it's just very much troubling and concerning. And so I just thought maybe if I wait another week, I'll hear that she got arrested. I plan on coming on about a month ago because I thought she's going to be arrested by the end of the year. But think about this. Even Dave Ehrenberg, who was a friend of Dan's, he was predicting when he would be arrested by Thanksgiving. And I had said by Christmas, New Year's timeframe. And he's friends also with Jack Campbell. So he was predicting her arrest. And he just recently left as I think it's the first district state attorney down there in Miami. And so for him to predict that when he'd be arrested, he obviously knows the evidence well enough to see that you got enough to go after this. You're not throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. You got the details. The nice thing about circumstantial evidence is it's not malleable. You cannot argue it any other way because it all just paints a picture, a mosaic of what exactly the defendant was up to. How do you take away and explain away so many different things, from Wendy going to the crime scene a little over an hour after Dan's murder, to Wendy sending a text message to see if Dan's going to be there in that 14 to 18 July window of 2014? What other thing would it be other than to find out if that's a good window for the killers to come up there? Because she was in Miami at the time with her family in the early part of July. It was a scheduled visitation. Why would you want to know if Dan's going to be there or not? So those are the kind of many details that we have. We could go on and on and on. I mean, we've covered this a whole lot, and there's well more than 100 indicators. Why would she be taking down the artwork that the kids made in the house that she was at in Aqua Ridge that we heard from Jeff Lacasse talk about? Why is that just a coincidence? All these things are not coincidences. They're all showing a part of the planning, an effort to get out of there. Think about the fact that she lawyered up on the way down to Tallahassee. All the family hid behind lawyers and wanted nothing to do with law enforcement, except of course the honorable doctor up in New York. So I should be talking only about the Florida Adelsons. He came forward and answered questions at the FBI, and then what happened? The family cut him off. They wanted nothing more to do with them. So that's the kind of circumstantial evidence we have. It's just overwhelming. And so I don't see why you would sit there and allow somebody for 12 years to go through and be out free as a bird and nothing being pursued to date. So yeah, and Maya Rodriguez Sorensen, you're asking why would she be asking about when kids' memories are formed to Jeff Lacasse? That's another new thing we heard. there is more evidence out there that we have not even heard yet as well. So that's a good thing to realize, is that we have more details out there. Why would Donna have Jeff Lacass's license plate on there? I think I have a small. I don't know why this screen is coming on smaller here. Are you guys seeing a smaller screen? So not sure what's going on here. Somehow it's cropped. So let me show you this also here. This is what I found in the news. It sort of shows the mindset, I would say, of Jack Campbell. This is when he first was running for office. He won 55% of the vote there in the second judicial district competition. It covers 6 Florida panhandle counties, and that's in the western end of Florida. And he beat out a Republican, Pete Williams. And so it shows that he had worked 15 years there in the office of Willie Meggs. Think about it. Willie Meggs is the one that came out and defended the Adelsons, saying there's no evidence that they were involved and whatnot. Now look where we're at. So, but look at his opponents. This is in part of this public media site here. They said that opponents argue that Jack Campbell is part of a good old boys club characterized by nepotism and corruption. So, but Campbell says connections to community are an asset. Well, how are his community connections helping the Adelsons here? What has he done to help the Adelsons here to pursue full justice? He pretty much waited many, many years beyond which it was necessary to pursue Charlie and Donna. And so, yeah, it does look like there's something amiss there in Tallahassee. And then look at it says here, Campbell says when he takes office, he hopes to combat crime by addressing underlying issues like poverty and drug addiction. Okay, well, this is not a poverty case with the Adelsons, right? Is it drug addiction? Okay, well, how's he going to affect that with drug addiction? They're popping Xanax pills all the time. So that's a little something that he's not talking about, is how tough he's going to be on crime and violent crime, and he's going to bring down violent crime. So it's just not tough talking sounding language that you would want to hear a prosecutor say when he's been elected. So anyway, it's what do you guys think about it? It's the connections also. Yeah, think about how things have blown up among the Adelsons there. So they cut off contact with the Honorable Dr. Rob Adelson up in New York. And then Donna doesn't have any contact with Charlie because they're both incarcerated. Then we also have Wendy. Wendy could see her mom and could see Charlie, but she doesn't have any interest in that whatsoever. She wants to stay away from them because she's worried about something happening, and they confront her, and next thing you know, it's recorded and that's being used against her. So she's continues to pay her attorney to advise her on how to try to stay clear of getting ensnared with further conversations with their family. And that's what you do if you're guilty. If she had nothing to do with this, why didn't she go and confront him? So what the heck are you doing? Why would you do this behind my back, mom and dad? Charlie, what the heck are you guys doing? But no, you don't hear any of that. Yeah, she even wrote a book talking about how much she hates Tallahassee and hates her husband, in essence. So unless there's public groundswell of support, you're not going to see it probably from folks there locally. It's going to have to be more the YouTube community. So if you guys want to send in messages, email messages to the state attorney's office or to the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, you can Google him and send them emails. Let them know you're very angered and ticked off about this issue, lack of justice. Think about it. They named Wendy a unindicted co-conspirator. That means they know she was part of this. So why aren't they making her an indicted co-conspirator? There's no reasons whatsoever. Her immunity deal is not a problem. She got away so far with lying on the stand over and over and over again, and she had no accountability. So she had no accountability for that. She had no accountability for what's went on in her involvement in the murder of Professor Markel. So yeah, and Charlie does have, I see this question here on February 3rd. Charlie Adelson's hearing, his appellate hearing is going to be then. And so I plan on covering that after it happens. Mr. Monk's understudy, it seems like the Adelsons made a deal to give Charlie and Donna, but spare Wendy and Harvey. Yeah, it's it's not something I think they chose to do. I think it's just a matter of Charlie and Donna so far not willing to flip over and bring down Wendy because they think they have a chance. They're trying to save face and claim innocence, despite the ridiculousness of that. Kristen, hey Jill, could the boys sue the state when they get older for letting a murderer raise them? No, there's no ability. The prosecutors pretty much have immunity. They can wait years and years and years, or never decide to prosecute a case, and nothing happens for them on that. Kim Steinecke, I rewatched Wendy's interview on SDS with a few attorneys. There's more admission on there. It's full of admissions. It's full of details. When Isom said he's going to call the Markel family, when he said they're going to think I did it. Yeah, he never followed up. Say, well, why would they think you murdered your husband? I mean, that would be a classic thing. I've said that before, but no, Isom was asleep at the switch. And the thing is, they thought of Tallahassee as a bunch of country bumpkins, people that are a little bit slower than them. They aren't sophisticated and as intelligent as they are in Miami. And so, to extent that's sort of played out okay. If it wasn't for Charlie talking, if it wasn't for the bump by the FBI, then basically Charlie's and Wendy's assessment of Tallahassee has played out to their favor. And they look down their nose at them, and so far it was Charlie's own words and Donna's own words that did the best to convict them. Yeah, the 222. Who is in charge to give the go ahead for these charges and arrests on a first degree murder case like that in an office? It would be Jack Campbell. So it's not going to be one of the underling prosecutors. So it is Jack Campbell. No, the police cannot go ahead. Because think about the prosecutor, someone that brings evidence forward. The cops don't prosecute the case, the prosecutor does. Joy Moore, any chance Charlie Adelson's 3 Feb hearing could be affectionate? I'm not sure what you mean by affectionate. I don't think his appeal is going to mount to anything on what they have on 3 February. This whole thing about the jury pool was inundated with folks that knew too much about the case and all that. That's not true at all. So the thing he has to hang his hat on, his best chance of getting the case overturned on appeal, is this issue about conflict of counsel. And they're not raising that now. They raise that at a different stage. They have some kind of bifurcated process there for raising an appeal for ineffective assistance of counsel. So that's what that would fall under, the conflict of interest. Let's see. PJ SoCal, you're saying, what did Ruth Markel mean by people were retiring? Well, we already have, especially in Corbett, he's retiring out of the city city police department, and I heard he's going over to actually work for the state attorney's office. So if that happens, he's still subject to being available. But it's people can become unavailable for any number of circumstances. So sitting there, you're going to wait another 3-4 years until an Adelson flips, I think is a bad strategy decision. If that's what Jack Campbell's waiting for, they can say, well, we got, more evidence over time because we have Donna trying to flee and all that kind of stuff. You could have done that years ago. Just arrest Donna a couple months after Charlie. And so it's it's unbelievable how this thing is dragged on. They had no confidence until one Adelson's convicted to go after another. And so I think the only thing we can do is just pray for justice and write emails or letters and ask folks that are higher up than Campbell or prod Campbell along to do the right thing. Let's see, JW, you're asking, can somebody remind me what made the FBI get involved? You watch all the trials, but you can't remember. Well, the FBI, I think, were contacted probably by the Tallahassee Police Department. I don't think we heard exactly what triggered them to get their involvement, but it's um it's involving somebody that probably was involved with interstate commerce to kill Professor Markel because they didn't know where the suspects were from, were they out of state, or could they have been up to New York. So a lot of times the FBI will make themselves available to do things at the request of local officials. And I think one of the other bad things is the feds didn't come in and pursue this as well, despite them making it a winnable case against easily winnable case, I might add, against Charlie and Donna. They never picked up the case themselves to prosecute it. So John Smith, do I think if Wendy had been arrested first, she would have flipped on everyone else in the family? I think that obviously we'll never know, but I think that the way she pointed the finger at them, there could be some indications that she could not withstand going to a trial. The mental stamina it takes to be able to go to a trial, especially if you're involved in it, and if you can cut a deal and point the finger at other people, including your own family. I think should sell down the river Charlie in a heartbeat if that's what get her a lighter prison sentence, or maybe should get something like time served while she's awaiting trial in confinement, like we saw with the other co-conspirators. So yeah, that's possible. Well, if they also could have arrested them all at the same time and say, you know what, we're offering a super sweetheart deal to whoever comes first and rats out the rest of the family. But they never chose to do that. And so I think if Ch- if Charlie's appeal is denied, then he's going to go, wait a minute, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison and my sister's walking free and she was just as guilty as I was. And I'm rotting away. And this is maybe after his federal appeal would be denied as well. Then I think he would be most motivated to flip. Or if we had Donna dying in prison and she never got to see her sonny boy, I think that could be a motivator where he says, "Forget it. I'm going after Wendy. I'm bringing her down. I don't care. This is the only chance I have for seeing daylight." And but I think even if if his conviction gets overturned for the conflict of interest issue, I think that he then gets to start over from scratch, and then he can negotiate something and get a sweetheart deal at that point. Maybe he's going to get argue for time served to go after Wendy. So I would say that Wendy is going to be prosecuted at some point in the future. If Jack Campbell doesn't have the courage and guts to go after her now, then he's going to have an Adelson flipping on Wendy within the next 3-4 years. I'm pretty confident of that. So that's why I'm not throwing in the towel and saying, you know what, there's no way any other Adelson is going to be prosecuted for this. So yeah, JC, with so much evidence, doesn't he want another win under his belt? Well, we saw that he didn't understand the evidence against Charlie very well. They thought the Dolce Vita was so critical they couldn't go forward without that videotape. And yet we saw in the actual trial, they didn't even need to bring that in. That was such a slam dunk win. And so I think that, and then they took 6 years to get the tape enhanced. The FBI tape of that to be enhanced. I mean, come on, that's inexcusable right there. So there's really no concerted effort to really make this thing get prosecuted, except the FBI. It seems like the FBI was doing the main prodding to push Campbell along. Watercolor Mama, when there's the next election for DA and there's enough discussed about Wendy being free for a new candidate to run on the platform of Just for Dan Markel, I don't I don't know that there would be anybody that wants to run against him because it's sort of his job and no one's really complaining about it. Nobody ran against him this last time. And so I don't know if the locals really have that much interest in the Dan Markel case. It's not that noteworthy of a case to them. It's so far in the rearview mirror. And so I think just the true crime aficionados are the ones that are really keeping the pressure on. And so I would hope there would be that. I would hope there would be that. So I think by the pressure continuing to be there in the true crime arena, I think that can help things and get someone motivated to go after him. But he's going to need to have a Democratic challenger. That's what it's going to take. And if somebody wants to go against Jack Campbell, they're going to go, wait a minute, why do you want to run against Jack Campbell? The party could tell him, no, we're not going to support you. Stand down. So that's how easy it is for somebody like Jack Campbell to stay entrenched in that position for decades. Yeah, Granny Debbie, agree. There's more out there. Like Donna's trial, we learn new things. One of the things I was also thinking about this past week was how about um the attorney for Dan, Stephen Webster. I thought if you look at the original slides that John and I put together on the indicators list that was put out, it's one of the first things we did on this channel. So it's going on what, 3 years now? But on that one, I said that the timing of this, Wendy was in desperation mode. Dan had to be taken out because she was going to face a hearing. She was going to face disciplinary action with the state bar. She was going to face probably termination from the FSU in her adjunct professor law job, where it was only really a part-time job, but that's the only job she had. And she was going to about to be, if Dan wanted her fired, she'd be fired. Dan was a tenured professor. It was a star there in the FSU law school. So Dan could have had her fired, and he alluded to that in a motion he filed in the court that she's not acting in a manner that's fit to be teaching students how to practice law. And so he sort of let that be known. And what do we know from Stephen Webster? That the day that he wanted to hear an answer on whether Wendy was going to work this thing out civilly with the visitation with the kids and all that, and the stolen heirloom ring from the Holocaust survivor on the Markel side of the family. And Dan was willing to give some of the rest for the house equity that he was supposed to divvy up, but he stopped paying that amount when he saw that there was hundreds of $1,000s that Wendy had not accounted for in her list of inventory of assets when they're going through the divorce proceedings. So it's basically come down to what are the odds when their whole life is going to blow up that Dan can just basically pull the plug, and she's going down the drain in so many different areas. And then she's stuck in Tallahassee without a job, being fired, facing bar sanctions. I mean, there's nothing you could done to dial up more pressure on Wendy to try to get her to comply with being a reasonable co-parent. But you know what she chose to do? She chose her family to intervene and just take out Dan completely. No more visitation hassles that she can try to stick a dagger in his heart with. She basically didn't have to be stuck in that rat hole of a town she thought of as Tallahassee, and she could be in Miami hole free and make all kinds of money. And that's exactly what happened. So her life went from like being stuck for all these years. Think about it, the boys are still not out of high school yet, but they've been all these years not having to have shared visitation, and they don't have to stay in Tallahassee where Wendy despises them being. So it was like winning more than winning a lottery for Wendy on so many levels. So what they didn't do in other trials is bring in Stephen Webster to talk about what a serious timing issue this was. Timing is everything. The fact that motion was due and Wendy knew it, and basically Stephen Webster was going to drop a hammer, drop a lead bomb on the head of Wendy, and or at least let them know that if you don't come to us civilly and agree to amend things and not have this thing blow up, that it is going to blow up because Dan's gonna file something in court. I'm going to help him do it. So, Dave, you think that Tally would announce that Downa was the last person to be sentenced? Well, I think they even realize there's always a chance another Adelson will flip. So I think that's why they didn't say something like that. Yeah, there's probably something else on WhatsApp because that was asked of Wendy more than one time. Okay, apparently that's not been Markel and some driving around some car on YouTube. I've not heard of that before. Either way. Yeah, so just think about the agony and pain that Donna's going through now, living in a state prison in Florida. The food's terrible, absolutely disgusting. And Charlie has to drive through Florida traffic to get to her. Limited time window to talk to her, see her. So yeah, folks got to start contacting Jack Campbell's office. I heard like a year ago he would send an irate message back to folks, not a friendly message back. But you know what? If you're not doing your job, you're a public servant, so you need to serve the public, and justice has not been completed for the Markels. Sir Tedrick Walker, yes, you highlight, I think the number one giveaway of her involvement is her driving the crime scene in a little over an hour after the murder, and that's enough to convict. But there's so many other indicators. There's zero doubt. There's zero doubt in my mind. You tee all this up in front of jury, you get a conviction, no doubt whatsoever. Yeah, we got a lot of ice and some snow here in Texas, as well as a lot of part of the country. 2,300 miles worth of storm. So those of you overseas, so some folks are without power across the United States now. I think there's over 500,000 without power. It's really bad ice storm, snowstorm up in the Northeast. It's like over a foot of snow in New York area. All right, I'll just say Cod, and I'm not going to try to say the rest of your name. Sorry, but your question is, I wonder if they have Wendy's cell phone ping near the Monroe Street to place her there when Rivera and Garcia were there, and she may not have met them in person, but I do not doubt she drove by. Yeah, actually, I think she actually makes her own statement indicating she was down there going to a some kind of a event to visit friends where they had food trucks and stuff like that there, and she met friends for several hours. So I think that does place her in that vicinity already through her own admissions. Whether they actually have that digitally tracked as well, I do not know. Carol, you're saying, could it be possible that Wendy has already turned state's evidence against Charlie and Donna and gotten a deal? Well, no, because they've already been convicted. So I think her deal is a little too late to go against them. So a deal like that would come forth if they had not gone to trial yet. And so because they're already convicted, Wendy's of no value to them at this time. Now, if Charlie gets busted on appeal and it's a new trial, then they could use Wendy's help. But I don't see them giving her a sweetheart deal. I think she's ultimately the one that should spend the most time of anybody behind bars. Sir Tedrick Walker says it's like Wendy was rewarded financially for murdering Dan Markel, and Jack Campbell can't get his act together with facts. Yeah, it's abundantly clear facts, overwhelming facts, and yeah, she's been rewarded massively through millions of dollars of life insurance that's flowing through Dan's sister that goes to support the kids, which in effect supports Wendy as much or more than the kids. But and then she also has the Social Security payments that are probably 6,000 a month now. Yeah, so it does pay out big time. Junebug, you're saying Wendy will never have any peace in her life. She's going to be looking over her shoulders, which is the worst punishment. Would drive me insane. Yeah, I don't know though. If somebody's so checked out, and if they're also popping different pills and stuff to cope with that, it may not be the same as actually doing prison time. Zen cause, do I know if they have watched all my indicators that point to Wendy's guilt? Not directly, but indirectly, they know who I am, and they know the list. So I'm confident in that through the things folks have told me. I've never sent it to them, but I know other people said they've sent it to them. So I mean, but it doesn't matter if you don't have the desire to pursue justice and you're not losing sleep over the fact that the justice is still not completed on this case, then it's really, really unbelievable. John Smith, you're saying if Charlie or Don were to flip, would anything learned from them have to be backed up by proof, especially since they would benefit from it? Well, obviously, they'd be more beneficial if they had some kind of thing to prove what they're saying was true about Wendy's involvement and Charlie's involvement, let's say, but not Charlie's. I mean Harvey's. But it could be something that's you don't have direct proof of. It's not like a receipt or a video or audio tape of somebody admitting something, but it could be something like that unique thing about what we saw Katie McBanwell talk about the moldy money issue and how there was a money drop. So those kind of things are do they have any independent proof that happened? No, but it fits so nicely in the other details that they knew about. So I'm sure there's other details that they could bring forth that would definitely show that they're telling the truth about Wendy's involvement. Elizabeth, you're asking, is Katie getting anything off her sentence for finally telling the truth? Would that be an encouraging factor for Charlie to flip on Wendy? I don't think she's going to get anything from her sentence for a while. I think unless they've decided to not pursue any other folks, then they will decide what to recommend the court shave off her sentence. But I think that's going to be years down the road before that happens. So no, that's not something that they can directly see right now to motivate Charlie or Donna to flip. Our Sarah 4020, absolutely absurd, ridiculous, don't even say enough. I totally agree with you. Yeah, Lady Shore, I agree that where you say here, you never thought it'd take this long, that we're still waiting for the rest of Wendy Adelson. I never think after Charlie and Donna's arrest, we're still waiting here. Yeah, but there was, like I say, there's something about it that made me wonder in the back of my head, why is he taking so long? It doesn't happen. It really should have happened the same month that Donna's conviction that they went after Wendy. So why would you wait? There's no reason to wait. So if you're willing to wait a month, 2 months, 3 months, it makes no sense whatsoever. But you can have prosecutors that are that slow to go after justice, and then you have ones like the Karen Reed case where they're just fire breathing dragons and are willing to railroad anybody to get a conviction against somebody that basically it looks like they're framed more than anything. Real Dreamscape, you're saying in December, Ruth was extremely pleased about some changes coming up. I still think Wednesday will be charged. I do too. I just think it's going to be something that it basically has to be handed to Jack Campbell because he doesn't have the confidence in himself and his ability to read evidence properly and doesn't know how to read a jury that is it's making him hesitate to pull the trigger on this. Yeah. What are they waiting for? Nothing that makes any sense. I can tell you that. Lack of everything except lack of evidence. I can tell you that. Yeah. Wendy is in the Austin, Texas area. Probably about an hour and a half from San Antonio. Yeah, the 222. No, I don't think they have Wendy under surveillance. No, I don't think they're doing that at all. And no, there's not any complications because he's living out of state. They have the evidence that they need. So, Sarah Kelly, can the FBI just take over the case? Can Markel's put pressure on Campbell? The feds could swoop in and decide to indict her as well, but it's just you got the fact that the state has already done some of the work to prosecute some of the Adelsons. The feds may not be wanting to get involved, but I would hope that they would take a look at this and say, you know what, we need to step in and bring some adult supervision in this case. Sarah Howard, do I believe Donna will give up Wendy after she's done a few more months in prison? I think it's more likely Charlie going to flip than Donna. I think Donna would probably rather die in prison than get out and give up Wendy. But you never know. Maybe she feels like, you know what, I got a couple years, good years left, and I'm degrading rapidly, decomposing practically here in prison. So I want to get out and I want to go ahead and get a sweetheart deal. But there's no guarantee of a deal if you flip. That's the one thing. If you wait till after you're convicted to try to flip, there's no guarantee you're going to get such a sweetheart deal. And they may decide to wait until after you testify against Wendy's trial, and that can take a year and a half or two, and you may be dead and never get out. So Don 64, can Georgia go over Jack's head, or is it his call? No, it's totally Jack's call. Georgia can't override him. Flightless, you're saying, could it be a state funding issue, a budgeting issue? I don't think so. If they don't want to go after folks that commit murder for budgeting, then that'd be a real shocker. Kim Steineke, when will Charlie's appeals be over? Could they waiting for that? That's not a reason a prosecution should wait to bring in charges against Wendy. I don't think any good reason, but they maybe think Charlie's going to lose his appeals. So, but I think that Charlie does have a chance that his appeals will probably be over in like 3-4 years. I think he's going to have to go to the federal route before they would have any chance of sustaining and overturning his conviction due to the conflict of interest with Rashbaum. RV Reddy's saying they should bring me on as a special prosecutor. I'm against special prosecutors though, because that tends to be targeting one individual. So I'm not really a big favor of that. If especially if you do it for money. Now I'd be willing to do it for free so that there's not that public appearance of you're paying me to go after and target somebody personally, but they don't like outsiders to come in there to show them how to do it. So Chris, you're saying it's not over. No, it's not going to be over. It's just we're going to have a lot more patience. Yeah, anybody can write an email, Jack Campbell, or write to the governor. That's probably more important to get his involvement, resources. Maybe they could have a special prosecutor from the attorney general come down, swoop in, and take the case. True Crime Minute says Georgia mentions Wendy in every opening, every closing, and all 4 trials. Georgia still wants her. I still think it's political and above Jack Campbell. Is it possible? Yeah, that's possible. Something above Jack Campbell's head. Somebody's telling him to stand down, but we'll never know for sure. Those kind of things we don't usually find out. Jen in school. You're saying maybe when he's on the run, they can't find her. The court doesn't want to announce it. No, she's in Austin area, and they know where the school is that the boys go to. So, no, she's not on the run. Sir Kelly, can the Markels put pressure on Jack Campbell? They could, but he's not going to really probably listen to them too much. And so I'm not sure what kind of mileage they would get. I mean, I think we saw from Phil Markel saying that basically, there's no justice because they haven't seen their grandkids. Number one, Wendy's standing in the way of that, and no justice until Wendy's pursued as well. Maybe if the Markels talked to the governor's office and said, "Hey, what can you do? We need help." Because Campbell's dropping the ball. Campbell's sitting on his hands, sitting on a solid case. Here for today. So why do I think that Jack hasn't charged Wendy and Harvey? I think it's not because of lack of evidence, it's because something else. And so he doesn't have enough fire in his belly to go after it. He doesn't feel confident or for some reason, or else could it be some kind of other issue like a lot of people suspect there's some kind of other corruption going on? Anything's possible. Anything's possible. And if he says, "Well, I want to wait till we get more evidence," I mean, that's just such a lame excuse. I don't buy it. I mean, is he that unsure of evidence? But then again, I can believe it on the other hand because they sat so long on the Charlie prosecution and also the Donna prosecution. Gummy Dolphin, yeah, she should be arrested immediately, sent to prison. Yeah, just give her a trial in between that. That would work fine for me. How about y'all? Tracy H., could they be waiting for a prosecutor that will replace Sarah Dugan to get up to speed with the case? Well, Sarah Dugan, to my knowledge, has not left. I know she applied for a judgeship, but I was told she did not receive the appointment. K-Pin, you're asking me if I watched the Uvalde trial. That's the one where basically the law enforcement officer was charged with failing to go in and render aid to the children being shot up. There's like 22 dead and wounded. I think total of 13 dead children. And took the law enforcement officers 77 minutes to go into the school, and they charged just 2 of the officers. He was one of them, but he got a full acquittal. No, I did not watch that trial. I just saw a few minutes of testimony here and there. Nelsie, you're wondering if the Markels just wanting not to get prosecuted, save their grandsons from more trauma. Well, I think that you know, if they would say give Wendy a free pass just so they still be raised by a killer, I don't see them doing that. Yeah, Maya Rodriguez Sorensen, who's also a lawyer. You saying the special prosecutor thing was discussing in Massachusetts? Yes, it was. It's just too much abuse with special prosecutors. You know that the case there with Karen Reed, the prosecutor was a defense counsel, and they paid him $564,000 to do one trial. I mean, that's like outrageously insane, crazy. And of course, he's never going to dismiss charges or look at it neutrally. No, he needed to take it to trial. He was paid to take it to trial, despite the fact it should have been dismissed for lack of evidence. Okay, we have Asher saying, "How far will Wendy's words and actions go to show the jury so much what she did was to create plausible deniability, such as bringing up Charlie and his jokes so often before murder?" Yeah, I think all that shows that she was doing stuff to set this up to try to make it look like, see, it wasn't me. But then one of the most damning things is also her setting up Jeff Lacasse. So she only dated Jeff Lacasse to either have him be um, take part in it, and if not, he's going to take part in it because she kept on bringing up how nasty and wicked and evil Dan Markel was. So if he wasn't going to take some action to win her over, then she set him up like a bowling pin to be the main suspect. So why would you set somebody up to be a suspect of a murder case unless you're involved in a murder? It's so elementary that way. Let's see. Sharma Lily, you're asking, as a side note, I've been able to listen to the Karen Reed release judge sidebars. I have not listened to those sidebars because I don't know if I will, because I know somebody has asked me to cover those on live streams, but I think I'd be so fuming mad at the way stuff was going on. If we saw how bad it was during the trial, for the public to hear, and if I heard that what was going on, I don't know that I have such a zeal for justice and treating people fairly in a courtroom that seeing somebody trampled like that, it just burns my hide, and I don't know that I could sleep well seeing some of that what went on. So yeah, that's something I'm not ready to see yet. Yes, Mr. Cod, the Markels want full justice. They made it clear that not so many words, that this does not happen without a Wendy conviction. I think that's fair to say. Oh, here we got somebody out in Hawaii. Aloha to you. You handled the. Yeah, we're okay with the ice down here. It's not too bad in San Antonio. We're far enough south to avoid it. Yeah, in 2021 though, I know it was really bad. I know some family members that were holed up out in the country for like 10 days. Couldn't go anywhere. No power. All kinds of crazy stuff. So that means you transferred to Hawaii. That's interesting. Yeah, come on, Campbell. Need to get the need to get this case rolling along. Get some closure on it. Okay, Blanche, you're doing it. You're calling DeSantis' office, complaining about Jack, your Florida resident. I'd also follow up with the email, have a record of where they have to respond. If you call in, they probably aren't going to respond. So I would do definitely, if you had to choose one or the other, I'd probably send an email. But if you can do both, that'd be awesome. Okay, here's some uninformed individual saying, guess you don't even say your name, so you're hiding behind. Is this an Adelson here? Hello to you. Just isn't solid evidence against Wendy. No, there isn't just solid evidence, it's overwhelming evidence. So I agree with that first statement. None of you would want to be prosecuted based on the opinions of bloodthirsty YouTubers. No, that's true. None of us are bloodthirsty YouTubers here. She had to know isn't evidence. That's right. We don't need to have, she must have known evidence, but because there's over 100 plus indicators that are well beyond that. So, anyway, obviously, I hope you aren't talking about me as being bloodthirsty, and I think I've proven that by the fact that I was standing up for what they were doing to Karen Reed. So what I am is totally in support of going by the book, going by the constitutional rights that are afforded to criminal defendants in America. And so if somebody's guilty of a crime, we need to follow the rules. You go by the book, and how do you go about it? And you got to work hard and pursue justice with zeal and purpose and intentional. And you know what? If you got the wrong person, you stop. You don't pursue that. So it's not about, oh, piling on somebody and just making up stuff and just taking joy and making a sport of it. No, this whole thing is about justice, and that's what we're here for. So if you're here for entertainment or something like that, then this is not the channel for you. I'm here to talk about it from a legal perspective, and how I would be talking about it if I was sitting in a room with attorneys that are prosecutors, and how to go about this. How do you war game it and stuff like that? So this is a good question here from Mr. Ron Nielsen. How does Wendy possibly explain to her children that their uncle, his girlfriend, and their grandmother murdered their father? Yeah, I think it's probably along those same kind of things. They don't talk about it. So they don't talk about it. They other than the fact that, hey, Tallahassee's a corrupt system, and they've gone after these folks, and that's what happens. Society is evil, the government is evil. So that's the only thing they're going to say, and then they probably say don't talk about it anymore. Everything. Jack Campbell knows there's over 100 reasons. There's no doubt in my mind. He just doesn't want to act for some reason. So why is it? I think failing to act in light of strong evidence is a form of corruption. Without having any politics involved. You can't do your job and go after the justice that is demanded to have fairness to the victims, and that is a form of corruption. Yeah, I believe it's the attorney general there for Florida. So he also sent some letters, emails, whatever, to the attorney general. I think emails are the best. Free marks, you're saying, I wonder if the feds pulled WhatsApp logs in 2016 after Charlie talked about how much he used it with Wendy. I bet they have logged conversations of all of them, but they have been holding back for Wendy. I think there is something like that out there. That could very well be 100% accurate. There's more out there on Wendy. I have no doubts about that. Yeah, I don't know what somebody is saying that there's no need to replace her. She's still there. Yeah, I think Georgia wants to go after Wendy. I just think it's the one holding it up is Jack Campbell, or is it somebody above his head for some political reasons? Yeah, Daniel, so you think they don't feel the case is strong enough. They're close, but might be missing one piece of key that would put the nail in the coffin. No, that's what circumstantial evidence is. All these indicators, you can't explain them away. There's just it's like a tsunami that crushes the defendant. They did enough to keep her at arm's length. Really, she did enough? No, that's you totally get this. You totally don't know the details of the case, and so I know they think that about Charlie. They thought, well, we don't have really enough to go. We may lose this case, and we need Dolce Vita enhancement. Otherwise, we're going to lose it for sure. But you know what? They didn't need that. So it was just icing on the cake. Bonnie, you're saying, is it possible Charlie could flip on Winnie but not Donna? He could agree to talk about Wendy but then, but not talk about Donna. I mean, that'd be sort of hard to do because on a cross examination, you have to be asked about that. And then he's going to be lying if he says mom wasn't involved. So I don't see that working out that way. I think he's gonna have to come 100% clean. Now, if this was done earlier where before he went to trial, if he said, "Hey, look, I'll agree to do something if you don't go after my mom and dad and just go after Wendy," but you know what? He didn't do that because he's thinking he's gonna win the case and no other Adelsons be arrested. But that's why if they would have charged all Adelsons at near the same time or at the same time, that's how this would have broken up that log jam. Let's see here. Never give up. I wonder why Stephen Webster never filed the motion on the 18th. Well, because he didn't have a client at that point. They had till end of the business day, and he found out that Dan was murdered. So there's nothing to file if you have a dead client. It's not going anywhere. And after the deadline, he would have started to file the motion then. I don't think he had the motion all drafted up. I mean, that would be a lot of expense and effort all in vain if the thing gets settled. Sir Tedrick Walker, do I think the prosecution is collecting more phone evidence from the prison that the Adelsons are in? And does Donna has to be burning inside knowing when Adelson is free? Yeah, I think that's one thing that every day that Donna and Charlie are sitting there human mad, I think they're getting madder and madder about Wendy being free. Wendy was a prime benefactor. They did it for her, and now she ghosts them. That's that's something that's I think going to come back ultimately to burn her. Mr. Monks, understood. You're saying Donna will implode any minute. Yeah, I mean, look how she was there in court, just trembling and couldn't decide whether she wanted to testify or not. And I think she's trying to create an appellate issue, saying the judge forced her to make a decision that was not the one she would have made ultimately. So, all right, Nelsie, you're saying Charlie and Donna are thinking the poison won't flip. Well, yeah, but what about Charlie's son? Charlie's not going to get to see his son, so he's going to let Wendy have access to her sons, and they're soon going to be in college, out of high school. So he's going to want to take a fall and never see his son again just for helping Wendy have access to her sons. I don't see that happening. Uh, Charlie, you're saying, do I know of the Florida State CASCAR hearing? Well, that's a federal, based on a federal case. And it's not an issue here because they're not using testimony that Wendy made to incriminate herself to prosecute her. So if they prosecute Wendy, it's nothing that Wendy said to incriminate her. That she didn't confess to the crime, and now they're using that against her, and that was she was granted immunity. So it's not an issue here in this case, not at all. So it's just all smoke and mirrors stuff that the defense for Wendy, her defense attorney's trying to float to other people that get suckered into that or have an interest in promoting the defense of Wendy. Mr. Ronnie Nielsen, you're saying maybe the prosecution is waiting for all the appeals to be exhausted before making a move as there's no statute of limitations on the murder. True about no statute of limitations, but if they're waiting for all appeals to be exhausted, and let's say, so what happens if Charlie doesn't have his case overturned and Donna's doesn't have hers overturned either on appeal? Then how's that an advantage to them? If they're saying they believe that these things are going to stick on appeal, the convictions will not be overturned, then that's not, they're not openly publicly saying what they're they're really in fact believing. If they think they're going to possibly lose Charlie's case on appeal, then could they be saying, "Hey, well, at least we'll have when he has a new bite at the apple, that could be when he's going to flip on Wendy, and then we'll really give him a sweetheart deal." Could that be a strategy? Yes. I just think it's too speculative to really be a valid one. And given the strong evidence against Wendy, you just don't take that chance. What if Jeff Lacasse isn't available 3-4 years from now? Would you don't want to you don't want to take those kind of chances. Jeff is too material witness. I don't I think that'd be a really bad strategy if that was it. Cowboy Girl, how much evidence do I should be allowed at trial on motions to keep most of it out? Yeah, defense will raise similar motions, but for the most part, they're all going to be loser motions. So not worried about that at all. Yeah, a lot of anger. Justice not being met. No, I know that Campbell's doesn't buy her innocence. No, it has to do with the fact they named her an unindicted co-conspirator, so that's basically saying she's guilty. They, in their minds, know she's guilty. So Skeeter Girl, you're saying there's direct and circumstantial evidence against Wendy and plenty of both. Totally agree. Tanya Friedman, you're saying if Charlie's appeal goes sour, then you'll realize the only way out would be to flip on Wendy and Donna. Yeah, that would be the time. But the thing is, he's not guaranteed any time getting out anytime reasonably soon. They may go from life without parole to life with parole, and he still might not have that much shaved off, where he's still going to be maybe 70 years old, 80 years old before he's paroled. Should Edward Walker saying, "Do I think the prosecution will use Sigfredo as a witness in Wendy's trial and offer him prison time? Is he interstate incarceration?" I don't know that Sigfredo is any good as a witness. He's a really violent dude. Has gotten in trouble with getting in fights, trying to stab somebody in prison. I don't see him being a cooperative, compliant witness to help the prosecution ever. That ship has sailed long ago. And I don't really that he has that much details on the case at all. So I can't see him being totally forthright and coming clean enough to be useful. It'd be nice if I was wrong. right, let's see here. We got Randy DeBarbo. Is it normal that the investigation about witness tampering with Donna's lawyer is still sealed? Yeah, I would like to see that. What exactly was going on, and why hasn't there been any release of that information or an arrest, prosecution? Yeah, CC, you're saying send emails to the Attorney General's office and overwhelm with questions. I just don't get it. How justice can fall through the cracks like that. Charlie, you're saying, did Judge Wheeler ever get a waiver from Don and Harvey before allowing Rashomon to represent Charlie? Judge Wheeler had Charlie's case initially, not Judge Everett. No, they never got a waiver from Don and Harvey because they weren't defendants at the time. And even though they're suspects, that nobody thought of that. Jack Campbell never thought of that. Even if they did think of that or know of that, they didn't understand the law. Jack Campbell, we saw in his press conference, says we can't force lawyers of defendants who they choose off the case. We don't have that ability. And actually, you do. And I cited on this channel the Supreme Court case law that showed a similar situation where the trial judge kicked off a conflicted defense attorney and it went up to Supreme Court, and that was affirmed to Supreme Court. So that's the case I mentioned on this channel. And a couple of days later, Judge Everett used that same case to kick off all of Donna's remaining lawyers. Miss Mojo Rising, John Shorts alone could convict. Yeah, my brother's the one that does those shorts. And I think he got around 70 or so, and I told him, pause it for now. I just got a feeling that Campbell's is not tough enough to take on Wendy right now. He's quivering in his boots right now. He's afraid to go after her. So something like my gut reaction was that. And as it turns out, it's true. For now, anyway. Sarah Howard, Carl, with a lot more murders in Tallahassee. The grand jury is meeting more frequently. There's a lot of people getting killed in Tallahassee. Yeah, I know when when Leslie and I flew down there and we watched some of the trial at the end of it, we talked to the Uber drivers and stuff like that, and they were saying a lot of stuff about Tallahassee I was not had not heard before when I was there before, and so we heard about how Tallahassee's got a lot of crime issues going on there, but it is a very pretty place. And I heard about a lot of the bad traffic they have there, which was not something I really saw downtown near the courthouse, but people were talking about it. And I did get a chance to see some of it with Leslie when we're driving around, going places, but usually it's just during rush hour. Clever girl. Jennifer, you're saying, should we start an Arrest Wendy Guess the Year pool? This is nuts. Wow. I would say if they haven't, then because they haven't arrested her by right now, by January 1st, I would say he's wait until another Adelson flips or something new comes that forces them to have basically such an easy case to present because he doesn't understand what an easy case he's got right now. And you just got to be able to tie in all the knots, bring in all this detailed circumstantial evidence in, and there's a lot of it. So you can't be somebody that's not detail oriented. I know Georgia said she's not detail oriented, and so I would want to have Sarah take the lead on this one. So prosecuting Wendy, you need somebody that's very detail oriented, very sharp, doesn't skip over details, and knows how to pull all this together in a cogent fashion to really show the compelling story, the truth of what it is to a jury. True Crime Minute. After John was convicted and Georgia was answering questions with the press, and Jack Campbell took Markel's into his office. What do you think he said to them? Well, the same kind of stuff he says to any family that's survives the ordeals of this trial. And I know he's not telling him what he's going to do next for a prosecution standpoint, but and there's not a whole lot. It's just some more or less them thanking him and whatnot, and so it's just not a lot of substantive talk from his standpoint. I can tell you that because they don't know what's going on next. They're the victims, and they don't know what's going to go on next, which I think they have a right to know. CP, what defense does Wendy have? Well, that's the thing about all these circumstantial evidence pieces. They really paint a picture showing she was totally involved up to her eyeballs in this plot. So there really is no defense because all these things you can't, how can you explain away 150 details or more? Circumstantial indicators. It's just overwhelming. You can't. You can't say all these things are coincidence. You can't and have any credibility. Real life doesn't work that way. No, they can't say, as Never Darling saying they did it behind her back. No, she can't say that. She's got her DNA all over it. So, Sarah Howard, you're saying your child is 50 years old and she was born in the same household Dan was taken to. So I guess, are you still in Tallahassee? I cannot understand that place. Slow rolling these cases like they have. Yeah, it's Ron DeSantis. You got the last name spelled correctly, Sir Tedrick. CP, you're saying that's why Don and Charlie's keys were laughable, literally out loud because they had no defense. Yeah, I mean, it was really a laughable case for both of them. No shot of winning whatsoever. I mean, one of the things you could do is email DeSantis' office and CC Campbell's office and also the Attorney General. %. You're saying stock the bar party saying no to shooting. Who is when he going to have watch the boys? If that thing was really accurate, supposedly it was child friendly. Kids were allowed to come to that. It's supposedly what the deal is out there. DeFuego, you're saying is there any way to legally circumvent the state attorney's office and go straight to a private civil or criminal suit? Well, they could bring a wrongful death action. The Markels could, but back in 2016, everything was put into trust for the Adelsons because they didn't want to be sued, and so they've locked everything down. There's probably an ironclad vault where they can't get to anything. But they are spending millions and millions on attorney's fees, so yeah, think about Sir Ted We're saying even an attorney said it's going to be difficult to prove Wendy isn't involved in Dan's murder. Yeah, if you're defending Wendy, yeah, you have no chance to win that case. That's why it's so baffling. My Rodriguez, I wish they would bring a wrongful death suit against Wendy, sue her for $1, at least get her into a deposition. Yeah, she won't be able to hide behind the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent if they bring a civil case. So that would be something I think is always a good thing if there's a murder. You got somebody that has defense not cooperating with the government. You don't have their full statements and details. So yeah, cross-examine her at a deposition, put it on videotape. CP, do I think Wendy's shocked she hasn't been arrested? I think so. Yeah, I think she's got to be shocked. It's like, God, they're really messing up. But Julie, you're asking why there haven't been done as jail calls released like Charlie was. Yeah, if all these are wrapped up, that's a good question. And I've not asked for any of them, but do you know anybody that has? Maybe I should ask for them as well, because that could be a sign that they plan on going after other Adelsons. They don't want too much of the details coming out. Yeah, you can ask on the Leon County Sheriff's Department website for those phone calls. If anybody beats me to it, go ahead and if you get any, if you want to email it to me, I'll have a live stream that shows those. Never give up says I feel as though Wendy outsmarted everyone. No, that's not it at all. Um, well, I guess so far she has outsmarted Jack Campbell. So yeah, but does the evidence against her show that she outsmarted a prosecutor? No, it just happened to be this prosecutor that she has so far outsmarted. Okay, so True Crime Minute did jail calls, request of under the Freedom of Information Act. Charlie's released because of evidence against Donna. Otherwise, they want to keep him private. Yeah, well, I think all those evidence are against other Adelsons. So I think they just don't want to have to sort through them. So they go ahead and just have that as a generic response. Kelly, you're saying there's a big delay in phone calls being released. Phone calls from prison have them. I check there every couple days. I've not seen anything about phone calls from prison. Has anybody else published those? Grateful, you're saying, does Wendy still have a super powerful defense attorney representing her? I wouldn't call him super powerful. He's just a defense attorney and he's going through a lot of money representing her when she hasn't even been charged yet. So is that a reason Jack Campbell's not bringing charges because he's afraid of her lawyer? I hope not. That's not a reason to bring charges. You got the overwhelming evidence. You just need to go ahead and do it. Be known, have your legacy as being known as the guy that took on all the Adelsons instead of cowering and not going after all of them when you had the evidence there. And by all of them, I'm talking about the Florida Adelsons, obviously. The Gardner, no, there's not an age out situation. People don't allow parents to murder another parent just for the sake that, well, that way the kids get to be raised by at least a parent. Prosecutors don't use that kind of mindset. Otherwise, it'd be a real encouragement for a lot of parents to get murdered, right? Susan Levitz, yeah, Wendy let us down when they said they told her in the car about Dan. Yeah, so how's that square with how she reacted in the interview room? Yeah, I don't think she could afford Laurel. There's no way she could afford him. Charlie's not going to fork out the money. Not Charlie, but Harvey. He's not going to fork out that money. Probably a couple $1,000,000. Yeah, Sir Tedrick, when he set up the Honorable Jeff Lacasse, both times Jeff was scheduled to leave 11 o'clock out of town for work, and both times hitmen were in town to kill Dan Markel. Yep. Stevens, what do you make of the discrepancy over who took the beach photo of Wendy, Katie, and Yindra on Father's Day? Yeah, I think they're trying to say that I think the discrepancy is whether Charlie was the one taking it or not. I believe that's the discrepancy you're talking about. I don't have really an opinion on that. I think it probably was Charlie. Yeah, Miss Kitty, Wendy's preparations before and after the crime scene show her consciousness of guilt. What did she also do? Set up her canceled her cable a few weeks before the murder. Yeah, the only discrepancy was when he lied about it, says Carmi girl. But yeah, I think anything Wendy says is probably the opposite is true. Yeah, I mean, even the stuff like taking the photos off the wall, the drawings, the colorings of the boys, taking those down that they had all over her house, or was it in the dining room area, the kitchen nook or something like that. I forget exactly where Jeff was saying they were, but he noticed they're all removed right before the murder. So incriminating, along with all the other details. So now you're saying that if they're not going to arrest Wendy, they might as well release Donna because there's more evidence on Wendy than Donna. Yeah, it's just a different type of evidence. If you look at the number of indicators of guilt, they're way more on Wendy than there are against Donna, but Donna has her own words in her suspicious behavior that's on the FBI wiretap. So that's what really helps convict her, and where she says, "Does it have to do with you and me?" When Charlie says, who's this about? Who's this involved? So that was super incriminating against her. But in terms of like, if you count up all the things that leave no doubt in your mind, that's Wendy. That's the case against Wendy. You could say there's more evidence against Wendy than there is against anybody else, even. Lila J. Charlie's forever home. Sioux Falls has a low temp of -7 tonight. Yeah, it's a lot of negative temperatures here in the United States. Ollie Roger, I like that point you make. All roads lead to Wendy, period. Remember, she said that's a game changer if Dan Markel survives. Yeah, changing the names. Yeah, I mean, there's so much hate involved here. It's just overwhelming. I've never seen a case of violence with more hate than this one. Yep. She was upset. Remember the day Dan was murdered because he wanted to take the boys swimming that afternoon, and she freaked out because wait a minute, how are the hitmen going to find him? You can't be around the boys. Yeah, all that stuff. It's just so open and shut case. Flightless, yeah, the stuff they thought they could get away with, and so far they have. Two of the four Adelsons have. That's what's really bizarre. Here we have Georgia and California. Cracked TV screen is not repairable. I wonder what she actually told Best Buy to get them to come to her house. Yeah, it's all part of the code. TV was the code. How ridiculous is that? Yeah, hail and rain. Charlie whined that Wendy was handing everything and didn't have to work at it. Sitting in prison while Wendy is free has got to be eating him up. Yeah, but so far it's not eating him up enough to flip on her. So yeah, he's being mentally tortured every minute he's awake. And he probably has a rough time sleeping a lot of times. All right, CP, you've been saying that for years. Wendy's the most guilty. She's been offended more than anyone so far, by far. Yeah, I agree with that, and that's why this channel was started to talk about this. Evidence is overwhelming, and nobody's talking about it. And other podcasters weren't talking about it. Nobody's talking about it, and I'm like, going, wow, this is like really bizarre. The whole case all points to Wendy Adelson being the genesis, as Sir Chadwick Walker said. That's a good way to say it. Where was that at? Right here. Yeah. It all starts with her. And so justice is not finished until they get the person that started all this. Would it made any difference if Donna hired a dream team attorney, Jose Baez? No. You can't. No attorney can fight all that circumstantial evidence. You can't. You can't bedazzle a jury and confuse a witness. It's all this breadcrumbs that you can't explain it away. That's what's so great about it. It's ironclad, rock solid, irrefutable. Janie Garnett, that right there, when he attempted to scope out the scene of the crime after it happened, is a total tell. Yeah, I mean, any jury is going to look at that and go guilty, and then you got all these other things to add to it as well. They'll just give them that confidence that they're making the right decision to convict. Mary Sketch, okay, that's good. You give me confidence that is an open shut case, and she deserves to spend more time than anyone else. I usually don't think like that. Well, thank you for seeing it the way I think it. It truly is. I'm not putting any spin on it, right? I'm just telling you from my experience and investigating crime cases, taking violent cases to trial, whether as a prosecutor or as a defense attorney. I look for what's the truth, and then I go from there. And anyone doing the same thing here, it's abundantly loud and clear. Lori Michelle, what mother sees a police tape where their children spent the night and thinks nothing to see here? Kids are fine though, even though I haven't spoke to them or called their father. No, he would have called me. He would have called me if they didn't make it to school. Well, golly gee, what if the dad was murdered and he couldn't bring the kids to school? Yeah, Charlie's in South Dakota State Prison. Thanks, September Dawn. You're thanking me for steadfast determination to call out Jack Campbell on numerous occasions. Justice for Dan Markel. Yeah, I don't like having to do this. This is not fun. I wish this, on one hand, this whole case had never been anything that I had to cover on a certain level because it meant justice was working as the way it should, right? Justice working as it should. The Adelsons had all been arrested within 2 years, that have been all locked up. Everybody involved in this would have been locked up for at least spending some time behind bars. And the Adelsons would have been spending the most time of anybody, in particular Wendy. But here, what we have is all turned on its head, and Wendy's out running free. And it just really makes no sense. But yeah, well, 80%. You're asking what's the best evidence against Harvey? There's a YouTube channel I did on that, a live stream. When was that? Probably close to 2 years ago. If you go to his channel, look for it, you'll see it. I think the thumbnail is like a bullseye. Look for a bullseye with Harvey's name on it, saying that there's evidence there that shows they can go after Harvey as well. Once again, I have people talking about how Jack's waiting until the boys become legal adults. That's not how justice works in America. They don't let parents kill one another just so the kids aren't raised by somebody else other than a parent. You don't want kids being raised by a killer, do we? Is that a societal benefit? Sure, it's tragic if the boys get removed from a house because the parents being prosecuted for killing the other parent, but there's such thing also called deterrent effect besides punishment. Oh, one of the things I was going to say is keep in mind, do you remember even in Donna's case, her lawyer, her female attorney was pointing the finger at Wendy, talking about, I forget the exact word she was used, but she alluded to the fact that, don't blame Donna for Wendy's actions when it looks like Wendy was the one behind this. So words to that effect, don't quote me on it, but so that's why having having all Adelsons at the same trial, who's going to point the finger at who? I mean, they all sort of go down. They all have this linkage to each other. So if one goes down, it's like it's a royal flush. They all go down. Yeah, they have no excuses. It's an easy case to win if you got the right prosecutor, but we don't have the right prosecutor there in Jack Campbell. So he's holding it up. Then costs, Carl, I believe at the very least they could arrest her for accessory after the fact. What do you think? Well, I think you need to go after where the evidence leads you. And the evidence leads you to show that she was involved before the case in the planning stages. So if somebody's involved in the planning stages, don't charge her for after the fact accessory. That's for charge with somebody who doesn't know anything about the murder, let's say, didn't take any part of it, and then maybe helps do something after the murder occurred. Then they do stuff to help cover up the identity and help move bodies, stuff like that. That's normally what accessory and those kind of related charges are having to deal with, but not somebody who was one of the main instigators and planners behind the case. Francis, you're saying, why do I keep thinking Harvey put his fist into the TV? I heard something somewhere. I've never heard that, but I think they probably took a hammer or something to it. Oh yeah. Thanks for yeah, Harvey in the crosshairs video. That's the one, that's the title of it. Ashley, you're saying I believe Jack didn't really want to arrest Donna. I'm telling you, too many things that Jack Campbell has proved. He has never gone forward in doing something himself. Yeah, I think it came down to FBI's on the road. Wendy's fleeing the country. What are you doing? Stand up and do it. And then the other special, what is it? The other investigator in the state attorney's office drafted up the arrest affidavit, and they probably did some arm twisting to agree to have Jack Campbell prove that. So yeah, he probably was really hesitant and gun shy about doing that. Thanks, Clarissa. You're saying Bunny benefited the most from Dan's murders. Obviously, everyone except Jack Campbell. She's guilty, IMO. I don't think he's friends with Harvey and Donna. Not that I know of. What do I think about Isom doing an interview with, I think that's that other channel, with the guy, mentor lawyer. I think that from what I heard about it, I think it really makes Isom look bad, like he's clueless. I don't know, maybe he has memory problems or something. So Tedrick, you're saying at trial when Wendy testified in her mom's case that Wendy stated anyone involved in Dan's murder needs to be prosecuted full extent of the law, and Jackie said, and that includes you, doesn't it? I think I remember that. Thanks for bringing that out. So that's another indicator that they're pointing the finger there at Wendy. Cowboy Girl, you're saying, does evidence show intent? Can that be charged with murder? Well, there has to be an action showing that you took part in some of the planning or efforts to commit the murder. You just can't have an intent without showing some kind of linkage there. But there's plenty of linkage, so that's not an issue. Lori Michelle, do I agree her attempt to frame her boyfriend proves her guilt? I think it's a top 10 indicator. Setting up Jeff Lacasse is a top 10 indicator of guilt, absolutely. Because think about it, that was a long, ongoing effort to set him up. He was completely used for like a 6 to 8 month period, even letting her boys get to know Jeff and really getting used to him being around and being a part of their little nuclear family. And then guess what? Within days, both father figures are completely gone because Dan was murdered and Jeff Lacasse was kicked to the curb a few days before that. So, yeah, I mean, is that cold or what? Ashley Kane, okay. Sorry you have been a grieving parent. I can't imagine the tragedy you've had to go through. Unimaginable. Sorry you're having to go through that. And it's a lifelong thing to endure. Obviously, you never really fully get over it, right? So you're saying you sent an email to Jack a few months ago explaining what it's like as a grieving parent who wants justice. Yeah, I don't know that he really has that in him. I mean, you don't I don't know how somebody like him could sleep at night. Yeah, it was Jason Newland, that's right, thank you, that wrote the, arrest affidavit that probably was arm twisting, Jack to sign Jack Campbell sign off on to agree to have it go to a judge. Cater, you're saying so they're waiting until Charlie appeals tonight before the rest of Wendy. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there could be some kind of theory like that. Somebody else posed that question, but I don't see why that's really a smart move because there's too many other things that could fall apart. Could that be a reason? Yeah, but I don't think that I don't think they need to sit on the evidence that's so good, so well packaged at this point. Time can have your case fall apart if you allow too much time to drag by. That's one thing as a defense attorney, it's always to your advantage. The longer a case drags on, the more it's to your advantage. Evidence gets stale, things get harder to prove, memories fade, all these kind of things. Yeah, Amber, you recall what I'm talking about. You're saying Pat Sanford drove to Miami to arrest Donna before an arrest warrant was issued. Jack Campbell was still hesitating even at that point. Yeah, that just shows there's no plan of action of how they're going to bring down all these Florida Adelsons, and it's really just shocking. And they're like, well, if we get a hung jury or we get an acquittal on Charlie's case, then guess what that means? We're not going after any other Adelsons. Why would you even think that? Why would you think you could possibly lose Charlie's case? I mean, it makes no sense that you could have that low ability to interpret evidence and not know how to sell evidence to a jury. It's just mind-boggling that they could be that gun shy in that office. That he could be that gun shy. Sarah Howard, yeah, I think it's a matter of time. Despite she's going to be arrested in spite of Jack Campbell dragging his feet. How about that? You got to keep the faith, keep praying for justice for Ruth and Phil Markel and Shelley Markel as well. Yes, totally agree with that. Skier, you're saying, I wonder how much preparation a case like this will take because you could assume a lot of the evidence we've seen can be recycled. It's just plug and play. They got the same briefing slides. Nothing needs to be tweaked much at all. There's more detail, maybe a day and a half more details about Wendy's involvement that they'd want to present. Definitely need to get into the book. I admit all the key excerpts of the book where she's ranting about her hatred of um, basically Dan and also Tallahassee. That's what the book is written about. It's like her despising Tallahassee, and also the main character of the book despised her husband. So yeah, that's the real key motivator right there, and that was written well before Dan was murdered. CP, you're saying Isom's interview on Mentor Lawyer showed he doesn't have a good grasp of the facts of the case. What do you think? I, you can tell he's not really savvy investigator by the fact that the way he fumbled Wendy's interview. But the one good thing he allowed her to do was talk because he didn't act like he was suspicious of her very much, right? So in the end, it was very helpful rather than she invoked right away. But even her invoking 2 days later, it didn't dawn on him that he got hoodwinked at that interview. So very sad to have that lack of savvy investigators and chief prosecutor on the case. Their Beecher saying Wendy said on the stand that she didn't leave the house for a month after the murder, and then Stephen Webster said not even 2 weeks later Wendy took the kids to a pediatrician in Miami. Well, she actually left for Miami the following Monday. So Dan died on a Saturday morning around 1:30ish, and she was on the road early Monday morning, 2 days later. Let's see. Kyla, I'm not sure I'm saying your name correctly there, but you're saying Wendy reaching to Dr. Reb Adelson, her brother, that's her oldest brother, about her secret boyfriend was sus and points to her involvement in the plot. Yeah, that was really strange as well. And but it's not as strong an indicator as so many others, but it is odd. I remember him saying that something about that was being odd as well, if I remember correctly. You up or girl? I've been saying that third time now tonight. No, prosecutors do not take age into account because that encourages a parent to murder another parent to get exclusive custody, knowing that you have the rest of the children's life to raise them, and then the case may be so stale and old that you know you got away with it. So that's never a mindset I would say of a prosecutor. Cindy Farrell is Jack Campbell on the take. I don't know what's going on. I would hate to believe that, but anything's possible in today's world of where people's loyalties lie and what stands in the way of truth and justice. Yeah, the 222, Donna's escaping the country on a one-way ticket, and Jack Campbell was hesitant. Yeah. Well, like we talked about in the beginning of this live stream, Jack Campbell, his platform was I'm concerned about helping reduce crime by focusing on um, addictions and drugs and stuff like that instead of actual fighting violent crime and putting away the violent offenders and taking care of victims. So that's what his platform was, more of a social work. And that's why you can see he's not jumping at the chance to get after an Adelson. So you couldn't see the evidence for what it was. So that's what I've been saying this whole time. They don't know how good of a case I have, and it's my predictions have panned out on the outcomes of both Charlie and Wendy, Charlie and Donna, and it will be Wendy too. There's no doubt in my mind if they charge Wendy and go after and bring out all the details of the case, including like the stuff they just dropped the ball on. Look at kind of new stuff we didn't hear before about the license. Well, the license plate, that was a new thing that we hadn't seen before, but they knew about the text messages, the the 10 days or so before Dan was murdered that seriously implicates Wendy. There's a lot of stuff like that that they've known about and they never brought out in other trials, like the details with Stephen Webster again. Just so many things they left out that really is was an open and shut case to show Wendy's involvement, and yet they didn't bring in those other trials. Why not? So, as long as you don't sugarcoat it and skim over stuff, if I was a prosecutor on this case, who would I cut a deal with and why? This is Keela Davila. Well, it's are you talking about right now or are you talking about in the beginning? I think in the beginning, um, you charge them all up, then you offer a blue light specialist who's going to come running to get the best sweetheart deal first, other than Wendy. Let them know you're really wanting to pursue the main, or just even not even say Wendy. Say I'm really wanting to pursue the main instigator between the main instigator of the case. They're going to do life without parole. Everybody else, I'm willing to cut their sentence down, and you probably would have had a lot of efforts to point the finger among the Florida Adelsons there. So, but they didn't do that. And so one at a time makes them all circle the wagons around who's ever going in the firing chamber first. So Charlie went first. So they all try to trust that their lawyers and the money could bail them out of a conviction. And then when that didn't work, then next up you got Donna. So Donna, you know, if there was a deal that they informally talked about, or hey, is she willing to do something for us? Just asking the question, is she willing to do something for a sweetheart deal of time served or 2 years or 5 years? If they just asked a question like that, if that's formally not an offer, but was something like that floated and Donna just didn't want to. And so don't know if that actually happened, but I think that Of the Adelsons that you could easily flip, I think the easiest way to find that out is by charging all of them and have them all charged at the same time, either at the same day or within a few months of each other, and then let them fight it out among themselves, and then try to have it all at one trial. So, how's that gonna work if Donna's lawyer's pointing the finger at Wendy, and Wendy's on the same trial as her mom? I mean, it's just that's what's beautiful about bringing all the same co-defendants in the same trial. Yeah, Kristen, you remember that. Donna wouldn't let Ruth see the boys at the memorial service. It was so weird. Yeah, another indicator. Well, how about Wendy? Wendy's the mother of the boys. And what about they never seen the graveside of their dad up in Canada? So when he says that'll never happen over my dead body is what she told Phil when Phil said, "Hey, why don't you guys come on up to Canada?" Officer Oscar Gray, yes, there has to be a grand jury indictment for a murder case in Florida. There is. Like here in Texas, any felony, there has to be an indictment by a grand jury. Karen, you're saying Donna told Charlie they're going to help him as much as they could, and then within days they're on their way to Vietnam. Charlie knew he was being backstabbed bad and abandoned. So much for the loyals, Adelson loyalty. Well, I do think that there could have been some code talk in there where basically they're saying all that and yeah, we're going to be around when actually he was telling them leave because you could be next. Hurry up and get out of town, mom and dad. Go ahead, go to Vietnam where we got everything set up like we talked about. So I think there was some kind of a code word there that if something went south, I'm going to give you a code and you guys leave. So that's why I don't think there's that total abandonment like we initially thought. Okay, there's a to Fuego. I still think there are backdoor nefarious deals being made and legal team is having to stand down. And I don't know about backdoor deals you're talking about. There's nobody charged right now. And so unless somebody's wanting to come forward and have a potential of having their sentence shaved off, i.e., Charlie or Donna. I just don't see that happening. LP, you're saying I keep thinking of one of Jack Campbell's loved ones, he would have Wendy Adelson behind bars long ago. Well, somebody that is loved one, and he wouldn't be able to be the prosecutor, he'd be conflicted out. But I get your point. Yeah, if it was somebody that was more influential or a stronger connection to the community or something like that, yeah, they would look at it's totally different. All right, so let's see here. Trying to jump up to the questions. Amber, you think that Charlie was definitely shown talking in code. Okay. Thanks, Christina. Ellen Ward, you're saying that Donna said that loud and clear right after the no, 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 Wendy wasn't involved. No, 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 like don't go there. Like we gotta keep Wendy out of it. Just like, part of our plan is we don't talk about Wendy at all. That was just sort of more like the code, the two of us. That didn't mean that of course she wasn't involved. Why would you say no, no, no 5 times? Like, oh no, no, don't go there. It's like, no, no, nothing to do with Wendy. No, it just you wouldn't say it 5 times. Like, don't go there because that's the hot. It's a hot button issue. Don't go there because he would probably. She knew that there would be a rant probably coming right out of Charlie's mouth right after going, "Oh, you got to be kidding! If this is something to do with Wendy, what the heck?" And they're trying to keep this under wraps. So that's not an exculpatory statement that proclaiming Wendy's innocence at all. So, yeah, Blue Bio Clinic, or you say I've considered that maybe the prosecution introduced some of the damning evidence against Wendy in previous trials to avoid any spillover from her limited immunity. So should she ever be charged? Well, that would be something that Wendy probably knew about that through the lawyers all talking among themselves. So they probably told her, hey, they got this evidence against Wendy, blah, blah, blah. And so think about it, because Rashbaum, his questioning of Wendy was so obvious that they had been working with her lawyer and all these softball questions. She never had any confusion or misunderstanding of the questions Rashbaum was asking. The same thing happened in Donna's case when the questions were asked by her defense lawyers. So no, I don't think that was any of the that's not a reason why not to introduce evidence, and you're not introducing it in Wendy's trial. It's you're wanting to do that to prove up the murder of a co-conspirator, so you wouldn't take your foot off the gas and try to limit evidence like that. So it makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever to me. So yeah, Liz, you're saying the code was I should have listened to my gut. Yeah, that was something that maybe he was telling us that could have been the code where he's saying to his mom, like, you and dad need to flee the country as well. I should have done that. Look where I'm at. Don't you make the same mistake I've made. All right, so we're at almost 2 hours and 20 minutes here. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off, folks, and we'll go ahead and stop for now. But I'm going to cover something else I think that has something to do with some incident of murder, and there is something that I think I can tie some points into this Dan Markel murder case. So I may do that in another week or so. But one other thing to keep in mind is on this. If you guys look at this Aaron Spencer case out of Arkansas in a small area east of the capital, Little Rock, the Supreme Court there bounced a judge. The sitting judge on the case was acting very erratic and one-sided, unfair to the defendant. So that that's very much a case that I think is shows if somebody stand in the way of justice happening, that people speaking out and then this getting out in the news. I think Supreme Court getting media attention on how corrupt this process is there in that little county that this murder happened. That was very much a mitigatable or justifiable type of murder, which is not actually murder. It's a killing, but it's not something that should be criminalized to the degree it has been. And so Aaron Spencer is a case that it goes to show that public pressure can make a difference. I think if there wasn't public pressure on this case, given a black eye to the justice system in Arkansas, I think that we probably wouldn't have seen that ruling. And so I think all the public pressure has obviously made a difference, I think, for the jury helping to see stuff for the Karen Reed case. And I think that this is, if you guys do pressure, dial up pressure to have justice happen in Florida on the case with the Markel family, I think sending out messages, professional messages of your concern and why justice is not happening, and that whoever you think is standing in the way, that needs to be challenged and looked at with fresh eyes, then go ahead and do that. Please be motivated if you really have this sense of justice for the Markel family. Please, I encourage you to send emails out there, and don't let this thing die on the vine. And so that's the good you guys can do. So you guys can actually have collectively more weight than any high-powered lawyer or politician or whatever. So please exercise your rights to express your frustration, your sense of injustice, and the disgust that that justice has not been fully borne fruit there for the Markels. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And thanks for all your attention and focus on this case and others at Crowd for Justice. So you're saying Corey Richards starts in 2 weeks, so I got to check that one out as well. But you guys, please check out the Aaron Spencer case. I don't think that one's going to be televised, but I do want to cover some bits and pieces of that, because I think it's really a case that is another one that's outrageous, and the way justice being mishandled and trampled on. So with that, y'all have a great week, and be safe, and talk to y'all soon. Thanks. Good night.